have you ever stopped to think where these massive stories, like, The Lord of the Rings, the Marvel movies, or even your favorite epic video games actually come from? Well, believe it or not, the blueprint for pretty much all of them goes way, way back to one gigantic, world-changing opera. And today, we're going to dive right into it.
Yeah, I know. It sounds kind of wild, right? What could a movie like Avengers Endgame, a game like God of War, and some super long old-school opera possibly share? Well, the answer is going to surprise you. See, it all started with one guy who had a huge imagination and even bigger plans.
So let's meet the man himself, Richard Wagner. He was born in Germany way back in 1813. But this guy wasn't your typical composer. Seriously, you should think of him more like a 19th century version of a game developer or a movie director. He grew up around the theater and was completely obsessed, not just with music, but with drama, poetry, ancient myths, the whole shebang. He wanted to build something massive, something totally immersive.
Okay, so Wagner had this giant idea with a really long German name, Gesamtkunstwerk. It basically just means a total work of art. Let me put it this way. Imagine you're creating a massive video game, right? But you're not just composing the soundtrack. Nope. You're also the lead writer for the story, you're the director for all the cutscenes, and you're the main designer for all the levels and visuals. You want to control absolutely everything to create one single, perfect, immersive experience. That was Wagner's whole goal.
And you can see just how much control he was after. I mean, most composers back then, they just wrote the music, and that was it. But Wagner, he wrote the music, the story, and all the lyrics, which, by the way, is called the libretto. He even directed the actors and obsessed over every little detail of the set design. This was just totally unheard of at the time. He wanted you, the audience, to get completely lost in his world with zero distractions.
So, what exactly did he create with this total art idea? Well, he set out on his ultimate quest, the Ring of the Nibelung, or what we call the Ring Cycle. And this wasn't just one show, it was a massive series of 4 operas, kind of like a 4-part movie series. And get this, he spent 26 years working on it. To see the whole thing, you'd have to go to the theater on 4 separate nights, for a grand total of 15 hours. Now that is what I call epic.
And these 4 operas, they tell one single, continuous story. It kicks off with the Rheingold, which is basically the prequel that sets everything up. Then you've got the Valkyrie, where a huge rebellion goes down. Part 3 is Siegfried, your classic hero's journey. And it all wraps up with Twilight of the Gods, which is just this massive, world-ending finale. So how does this whole thing begin? Well, it starts with some magical gold at the bottom of a river. A dwarf named Alberich steals it, but to unlock its power, he has to do something extreme, renounce love forever. He uses the gold to forge a ring that can rule the world. But because he gave up love for power, he puts this terrible curse on it. And that kicks off a huge war between gods, giants, and heroes, all of them fighting over this one corrupting object. Sound a little familiar? In the second opera, we meet the Valkyries. And these are the warrior daughters of the head god Wotan. Their whole job is to fly over battlefields, on winged horses, and scoop up the bravest fallen heroes to take them to Valhalla, the god's castle. The most important one is Brunhilde, Wotan's favorite. But she disobeys her dad out of compassion, and, well, that's where the real drama really starts to kick in.
And that brings us to our main hero, Siegfried. He's this young guy who was raised in a forest by a dwarf. He has no idea who his real parents are, and he literally does not know what it feels like to be afraid. He is the classic chosen one, a pure force of nature who's just destined to shake up the entire world.
Okay, this part feels exactly like a video game quest log. First, Siegfried has to reforge a legendary broken sword, proving his heritage. Check. Then he has to slay a giant dragon, proving his strength. Check. Then, thanks to the dragon's blood, he can suddenly understand birds who guide him to his next quests. Walk through magical fire to find and awaken the sleeping Valkyrie, Brunhilde. He isn't just leveling up, he's becoming the complete hero.
The final opera is just a total tragedy. Siegfried is betrayed and killed. So, in this huge final act of sacrifice, Brunhilde returns the cursed ring to the river, breaking its power for good. She then rides her horse right into Siegfried's funeral pyre, and the flames grow so huge they actually reach up and burn down Valhalla, destroying the whole corrupt world of the old gods. It's like a hard reset for the entire world, suggesting a new era can begin for humanity, finally free from the gods' endless greed and lust for power.
But, a story this epic needs music that's just as epic to make you really feel the weight of it all. And this is where Wagner gave music some serious power-ups. He completely changed the rules of the game for how music could be used to tell a story.
His biggest innovation was something called the leitmotif, and it's a simple but absolutely brilliant idea. Every important character, object, or even emotion gets its own short, unique musical theme. Think of Darth Vader's Imperial March. That's a leitmotif. Wagner did this for everything. Siegfried, that's a heroic tune, the Cursed Ring, that's a dark and ominous one. So the music itself becomes a kind of narrator, giving you these subconscious clues and reminding you of all the key ideas as the story unfolds.
So, okay, you've created this massive, 15-hour epic with a huge orchestra and super complex music. You can't just perform that in any old theater, right? Wagner knew he needed a special place. You can think of it like building an IMAX theater for just one movie, or like a custom-built gaming PC that's designed to run one incredibly demanding game perfectly.
So he built this, the Bayreuth Festspielhaus. The very first full ring cycle was performed right here in 1876, and it had some amazing features, all designed for total immersion. The massive orchestra was hidden away in a pit under the stage, so the sound was perfectly blended and it didn't just drown out the singers. The seating was steeply sloped, just like an ancient Greek theater, so that everyone had a perfect, unobstructed view. It was all about creating the ultimate experience. All right, so, a 150-year-old opera. Why does any of this matter to you today? Well, because Wagner's legacy is absolutely everywhere, especially on the screens you look at every single day.
Just think about it for a second. In 1876, the Ring cycle premiered, and it completely changed music. Now let's fast forward to today. When you hear the theme for Luke Skywalker or the one for Darth Vader, that's just John Williams using leitmotifs. Those huge emotional musical moments you hear when something epic happens in a fantasy movie, that's straight out of Wagner's playbook. He literally gave film composers the tools they still use to make us feel all the feels.
So if you take one thing away from all this, let it be this. Richard Wagner wrote the playbook for the epic, multimedia storytelling that we see in all our favorite movies, TV shows, and video games today.
I mean, he combined story, music, and visuals into something totally new, totally immersive. And it changed everything. And it really makes you wonder, what's going to be the next big story that comes along and changes the rules of the game all over again?